Hi everyone, and welcome to JAM332 porting apps with Appcelerator. My name is Garett Beukeboom. I'm part of the developer relations team at BlackBerry, and I'm pleased to have with us Russell McMahon from Appcelerator. So today we're going to talk to you a bit about what's available to you if you're an existing Appcelerator dev. So just by a show of hands, how many people here have used Appcelerator already in the past? Nice, so a good number of people. How many people here know what Appcelerator is and what it has to offer? So some people have developed, don't know what. All right. So just so you guys know, we do have a fair number of other people still scheduled to come. So if they do come in the door, just ask that you give them a really dirty look for being late. And we just got to kind of start off. We've got a pretty tight deadline. So we're just going to keep going here, even if people start coming in. So just so you know, if you haven't seen it already, Marcus Ross is here. He has developed an application with Appcelerator that controls an augmented reality drone. So he's going to be doing a demo for us at the end of the session and talking a little bit possibly about his development experience. So this is all contingent upon him fixing his application. So he's actually just stepped out of the room so he can do some debugging on it. He has it working, but he's just kind of the type of guy that keeps on adding more functionality. So we'll see what happens with that at the end of the show. So as a brief intro to Appcelerator, the main goal for Appcelerator is basically they take the native object model of multiple platforms, so iOS, Android, and adding support for BlackBerry 10, and abstract that up into a JavaScript runtime, meaning that if you can basically develop your application using entirely in JavaScript, and then create a native application on all these various platforms. Sometimes little or no code changes to target the multiple platforms depending on what sort of coding you're doing. The native UI is something that you get for free out of that, meaning that if you're developing for iOS, you're developing for Android, you develop for BlackBerry 10, your application is going to have a native look and feel to what the native development platform offers. And as many of you know, JavaScript is very, very easy to write code in. If you're familiar with web development, you're going to be familiar with JavaScript. So the syntax, the formatting is going to be very familiar to you. And it's going to really speed up your processing time it takes you to develop your applications, and let you create applications very, very quickly. So just some brief background on Titanium. So Titanium is the IDE that you use to develop your applications. Over the past 1 to 2 years, it's really picked up in developer acceptance. So currently, over 400,000 registered developers, which is a huge number. Lots and lots of folks are using Appcelerator and Titanium to create applications across the board for various platforms. And there's over 50,000 applications already worldwide. So take a look at a map of the world and where all these developers are based. Notice that Canada is this huge red block on the map. It's got about 2.1% of the worldwide developers. It's starting to pick up there. But if you contrast that to over in Europe, where we are now, there's a huge number of developers, lots of different in all the various countries in the region. So there's definitely places for you. There's meetups available for you if you're interested in getting started, or you just want to expand your knowledge, or just get more linked in with the community. And another thing, if you do want to kind of set up any sort of meetup, you can definitely connect with us after the session. We can hook you up with the right people to ensure you can get a community set up. So it's talking about developing the JavaScript but getting that native look and feel. The way it happens on BlackBerry 10 is through Cascades. So you develop your application in JavaScript using standard Titanium APIs, and what will happen is it will go down to the Cascades layer. It will actually use Cascades components, and what you're left with is a beautifully integrated application. So it's going to use the native look and feel. You're going to get a lot of the features that Cascades have been developed in Cascades to tailor you to a custom BlackBerry 10 application. And so you get all the benefits, all the usability of a native application, even though you're using a third-party development tool. And the way that happens, if we take a look at the stack, is basically what happened is here we're kind of separating out the Cascades APIs and third-party libraries into their own little boxes. And then those boxes are mapped to packages within the Titanium API stack. So these would all be our native extensions here, or native wrappers. And then for third-party libraries, so you'll notice here we've got So for media, we go TI Media. For some of the standard APIs, we got the TI, the main package, TI UI for the user interface. For BlackBerry specific things, there's actually a specific package for that. So things like BlackBerry Flow, cards, that don't quite fall into the realm of fitting across multiple platforms. Those are going to have a specific, their own package. So you notice that it's denoted by ti.ui.bb. So that's separated out specific to BlackBerry. And then for any third-party library, so say you're using some third-party library that you'd like to incorporate that's not currently supported, you also have the ability to kind of create your own modules that you can then integrate with your development within Titanium. So basically, this is all your native layer. And then on top of that, we stick the Java runtime. So in the Java runtime, this is where all your JavaScript APIs are going to be. And this is where if you're using the standard APIs, those are all going to be defined. And this is also where you can kind of go ahead and, if you're creating your own custom modules, you can plug into JavaScript here. And at the end of the day, you're creating your entire application using straight up JavaScript. And that's how it breaks down. So basically, the JavaScript speaks to a, Russ, maybe you can clarify the V8 runtime, which then... Yeah, V8, so it's very, very efficient. So at runtime, it's actually translating it into native code and running very, very fast. So you got great performance, even though you're developing in JavaScript. So I'm not fantastic with JavaScript, so at this point, I'm actually going to ask Russ to come up and kind of give a bit of a walkthrough of exactly what's going on here and kind of explain. Because right there on the right-hand side, that actually just looks like Cascades to me. That looks like our Cascades UI. So Russ, can you explain that a bit?
Yeah, for those familiar with JavaScript, what you're really looking at is just, this is actually relatively complex. You don't have to, our API is based on factories, so that for creating buttons, you're typically just creating a button. But when you want to get fancy, you can. So embedding functions within methods, sending it in, and of course calling it. This is similar to what you might do in node programming. And so this is all available to you in Titanium as well. I am going to demo in a little bit a very simple program. They'll show just calling the factory patterns on a window. So,
okay. Thanks. All right, so one of the big announcements that we had recently is that as of January 30th, the launch of BlackBerry 10, the BlackBerry 10 SDK is now integrated with the continuous build cycles. So anyone familiar with Titanium development, this is where you'll get the latest and greatest bleeding edge SDKs. These are nightly builds that go up. So you can download these and integrate them with your application. If there are any APIs that were built in, very, very recently, you can get them just locked. You get them day of through the nightly builds. So that's very, 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 very positive. Before we were kind of waiting on 2-week sprints, you could develop build from GitHub, but now if you just go to the nightly builds where you'd already be getting your iPhone and Android SDK and download right from there. So you basically, as soon as it's integrated, you've got access to any new APIs that get added. So what's implemented today? There's a whole host of APIs that are available today. So you do have the beginnings of making a really solid application Appcelerator that's going to be supported on BlackBerry 10. And basically, if you do have existing Appcelerator applications, you can start mapping against these and see what parts of your application will be able to be ported and what parts may still need some additional functionalities to be added. So I'm not going to go through each and every one of these, but they're like I said, we're gonna those nightly builds are going to have the most up-to-date APIs. As soon as something gets implemented that's going to be added to the nightly builds, you can download this out and test it out. We're working on 2-week sprints. So every 2 weeks, Russ, basically stays up for 2 weeks, takes a few days off after that. We put out there'll be a new sprint. So the new sprints, as those SDKs drop, they're going to have a bit more testing done on them. They're going to be a bit more stable. But basically, throughout the whole 2 weeks, there's a whole host of APIs that are going to get implemented throughout those 2 weeks, and then the sprint drop will come down at the end. So if you'd rather wait every 2 weeks and download the new SDK that way, you can get those as well. So currently, we are in preview release number 2. But we have the beta release as well as the gold release. So the beta release is going to be released in April, and that's going to coincide with the release of the Titanium IDE version 3.1. So currently we're in 3.0, so once 3.1 comes out, you'll know that the BlackBerry SDK is going to be in beta. So beta means it's been tested, it's really stable, and it's a good product. We're still adding more. They're still adding more APIs, but it's good and stable, and you can really start taking advantage of a lot of the UI APIs and a lot of the native Cascades through JavaScript and Titanium. And then targeting July for the Gold release. So take a look. Lots and lots of new features added in the beta. Now, you don't have to wait until April to take advantage of a lot of these APIs. They're going to get added in those 2-week sprints. But by April, the goal is to have all of these APIs implemented. So things like geolocation are going to get added, Alloy support for the Alloy framework, web view, table view, maps, all sorts of great APIs are going to get added in for that beta release. And then the Gold release, more and more functionality gets added, and we're pretty much getting up to parity with any of the other applications you may have created. So basically, it's going to get very, very easy for you to just click another button and build for BlackBerry 10 as another option, or develop a full-featured application specifically for BlackBerry 10 using the Titanium IDE. And with the announcement of the BlackBerry Q10, one thing you might be asking is when are we going to get support for Q10? So Titanium already has built-in support for multiple resolution devices, so you can already kind of put those assets in a separate directory for the 720 by 720 device and export those out. One of the ways that Titanium is going to handle those additional functionalities we talked about before, I think BlackBerry specific, are through extra modules. So all of the core APIs that are going to be cross-platform are going to be in the main libraries, and everything else kind of comes into separate modules. So things like the keyboard-specific functionality, so hotkeys and getting triggered, your application getting triggered by events with the keyboard will be handled by separate modules that will get added eventually as time goes on too. So this is all stuff that's going to tack on to the timeline as well. Now, if there's something that your application needs to function, if there's a few APIs that you really need to be implemented in order for your application to be ported over and be fully compatible, there's a few ways that you can kind of speed up this process. The first one is contributing yourself. If you would like to contribute to the open source project, basically all you have to do is sign up for the contributor agreement. So we got the link right there, and we can get it to you after as well if you don't have a pen handy. And then you can fork the GitHub repo and just start coding and contributing your changes. So you can add your own functionality. The second way, if you're not able to get in there and contribute that way, you can actually email Russ. So Russ has been kind enough to provide his direct email address. So if you have an application that you want to get ported over and you're really in a rush, you can work with Russ, tell them what APIs you need, and they can kind of reprioritize based on the need for your application and when you want to get it released. So they've been very, very open. Appcelerator has been great to work with for this project. Marcus is a kind of shining example of that with his drone application. He's worked with Appcelerator and made sure that they got the APIs in there that he needed to get his drone up and running. And as he continues to add new features, Appcelerator continues to kind of reprioritize APIs to make sure that as many applications as possible can be ported as fast as possible. So if you have needs, just make sure you let them know. And with that, I'm going to hand the reins over to Russ again, and he's going to go through a quick demo for us.
Yeah, thank you, Garrett. Yeah, so I thought what I would do is, great. Just kind of walk through a very simple demo. Again, how many people have used Titanium before? Okay, so some of this, it's going to be old to the folks that have used it, but there's a new checkbox, BlackBerry. So let's go through it. We use the Eclipse IDE to build applications. It's all based in JavaScript, and I'll walk through the creating of a very simple project, and then I'll deploy to the simulator. You can deploy to the device as well, and we'll do a signing. So I'll start. And you have a template. We'll just pick the default one. Give it a name. Also requires an ID. It can be anything. And then here's the BlackBerry checkbox. You can see the platforms we support. We also have, we didn't talk about it in the discussion here, but we also have cloud services are available. And so the lower part was automatically enabling our cloud services. So as this project was built, cloud services and its availability is already built in. This is just a configuration panel that we use to do the naming, and you can fill in descriptions for your application. This gets bundled and built into the app. This is a tab view. I'm actually going to put in a simpler app. But this does show. And this is, as I was saying, it's a very, very basic app, but I think it does show, earlier Garett was showing a more complex example, so it shows you how you can start very simply with factory patterns of creating a window. You're seeing the creation of a button, a label, and then very easily adding an event handler to it. Now, this can grow from here to what you saw, but this is the basic of building a Titanium application. Garett also mentioned Alloy. Alloy is a framework we provide that sits above this level and provides a model view controller with XML as your markup and styling and stuff like that. But for now, we're just going to look at the factory and building. So that, actually, we'll go to Project Explorer. So we'll go ahead and build the application. And it builds fairly fast. The layer, the V8 layer that Garett was discussing, and the bindings to Qt, that's all taken care of through. I'm not sure why. Oh. Apologize, my simulator doesn't seem to. Let me do this.
Booting up, can you kind of just walk us through what's going on in the application?
Sure. So what we're doing here is we're just at the top, we're creating a window, and this will be the outer container, and then we're going to create a button. As you can see here, it's fairly simple, and we're giving it in the constructor of the button. We can pass in properties. You're just looking at a few of them, but there's many, many more, and you can check out the documentation for that. And then we're also creating a label, and we're going to show the label on the button click that we've put an event handler to. And so this is kind of a typical model for building when building Appcelerator applications. Let me try it again here. Good. I totally apologize. Do I? Oh, thank you, Marcus. And then you see editing, too. All right, that should do it. As I said, it's really simple. And I encourage you to come over to, we're in the partner area, and I encourage you to come over and see, of course this is very simple, but Ket, who is also here, has an application. Well, you'll see Marcus's #1 coming up. And then Ket has a nice coffee builder app that he has put together. And so come by the booth to see a stunning app. And last thing, so that's building. As you can see, it's all live. Changes. And so deploying is also very simple. Distribute to BlackBerry. This will go ahead.
So this is packaging the release and signing at the same time. So it's all integrated right in with the application menus as soon as you check that off for BlackBerry for your project.
Yep. And so the app has been signed, and there's the bar file ready for loading up to BlackBerry World. So pretty easy to build an app, get it going, and publishing that app.
Cool. Yeah, thanks, Chris. Okay, and next, as promised, we have Marcus, if he finished debugging his application, who's going to be demonstrating the augmented reality drone with a controller that is an application that he built using Titanium for the BlackBerry 10.
Hello, everybody. I'm Marcus from Germany, and normally I do develop apps for business-to-business use. No Angry Birds, no such stuff, more things like point-of-sale apps and things. So I get in touch with Appcelerator 2 years ago and was really fascinated by this platform and easiness to do things. So last year, you know, boys and their toys, and I always wanted to fly a drone when I was a little boy. Basically, it was a plane that I want to have, but it was too expensive. And now we have this beautiful AR drone from Garett. The pity is there is no client for BB10 until now, because I worked with Russ together and the Appcelerator guys and said, well, could we achieve some kind of easiness for me as a web developer with no C, no C++ skills at all to bring this drone up in the air? And with Appcelerator, it was really a snap, and now I'm happy to say we can release BB10 Copter as the first controlling app for the drone. And as we progress with the SDK, I raise my hand for accelerometer support. Then we can do much more with these apps. So I will basically show some flight movements, and if you have some questions about how to do it, maybe we have just 1 or 2 minutes for questions there. Okay, so may the demon gods be with me. This is a drone. The fancy stuff about it is it's based on Wi-Fi. So we have a plain Wi-Fi connection. This drone has an ARM8 Cortex processor with 1 GB of RAM, and it's running Linux. I will show you the UI later when we can connect the my BB10 Alpha to it. So I start up BB10 Copter. First of all, I need to make sure that we have Wi-Fi connection. I can confirm that. Well, and hopefully it should now take off. So one flip, okay, not so fancy, but it works. And the way it works is really easy. I only do command things. I take some events. If you touch a button, send a command to the drone. And all the heavy lifting of, I mean, if you did UDP before, how many of you are knowing what UDP is? Perfect audience. And you know, for a web developer, it's really a pain. You know, it's like a sister protocol for TCP, and as a web developer, you don't want to do things like that. So the Appcelerator guys provided me with only one command that is built in to say, I would like to send the stuff to this drone with this IP to this port, and all the magic was done. The only thing I need to develop is how to build the commands properly. So even the flip you can program really easy. So that's BB10 Copter. Hope you like it. And I will release it to the store this evening, maybe tomorrow. Thank you.
All right. Thanks a lot, Marcus. So I'm sure, especially after seeing that demo, if you haven't got started with Titanium, you want to know how to get started. So to get started, you can download the preview release of 3.1 Titanium IDE that's got the BlackBerry support built in. So you get that nice BlackBerry checkbox when you're creating your project that Russ showed us off. You can download that preview.accelerator.com/studio/BB. That's also going to have a link to the release notes, which will contain the most up-to-date information on what APIs are supported, what APIs are coming for that Sprint drop. And that's also where you're going to be able to download the Sprint drop. So every 2 weeks, they'll post the Sprint SDK as it becomes available. If you're a little bit more anxious, you want to get a handle on the APIs as they become available, you can also download from the nightly SDK builds. So again, if you're already an Appcelerator developer, if you're already downloading the head rev of the nightly builds, that will include the BlackBerry SDK support as well. Some of the prerequisites to get going. Appcelerator does, Titanium does link in right with the BlackBerry native development kit for BlackBerry 10 or the NDK. So you basically just need to download that, point your Appcelerator install to the BlackBerry NDK directory. Pretty simple, nothing too daunting there. You also need BlackBerry 10 or Playbook code signing keys. They're the same keys for Playbook or BlackBerry 10. So if you already have those keys installed and registered, you're good to go. You're fine there. That's great. And then you also need something to test it on. You either need a BlackBerry 10 device VM, or you can have an actual BlackBerry 10 Dev Alpha, or now, since we're, since BlackBerry 10 has been released in the UK, if you happen to have a full-out BlackBerry 10 device, you can test on that as well. So just something to get you up and going. Everything BlackBerry related can be, for development, you can be received from our BlackBerry Developer Zone, so developer.blackberry.com. That's your portal to everything developer related for BlackBerry. It's going to be where you can get your signature keys, download the native SDK, and the simulators within a few clicks of that main page. If you need support at all, developing your application, you run into roadblocks, there's a few different ways you can get support. The Appcelerator has a great Q&A site where you can go and ask questions, get answers. There's also a Google group, which I've been on a few times, where, again, it seems like people are getting great support from the community, and Russ is also on there answering questions. And then finally, if you have anything BlackBerry specific related, or you have just a question about Appcelerator building and support, you can always post it on our forums as well. So we've got official BlackBerry developer support boards that are monitored by BlackBerry reps. And if I see any Appcelerator questions on there that I can't answer, I'll definitely loop in Russ and make sure we get you an answer as fast as possible. So just some last minute housekeeping things. Don't forget to download the mobile conference guide. If you're still not sure what's going on for the rest of the day, if you don't have a completely packed schedule, you can kind of check it out and see what's still to come in the BlackBerry Jam. There are session surveys, so if you haven't filled them out for sessions you've been to, or if you, after this session, if you could go fill it out, say what you liked about the session, say what you didn't like. We'd like to kind of continually improve on our sessions, so if we can make changes here or there, we'd love to hear your feedback. So please be sure to fill that out. And if you haven't filled it out yet, there's also a gift you get for filling out your surveys. And other than that, just thank you very much for attending BlackBerry Jam Europe. I think it's safe to say this is probably the most exciting BlackBerry Jam event we've had. It's just because it's right after BlackBerry 10 launch, and we kind of have actual products out there that you can look and feel with or play with, and we've got the Dev Alpha Cs for you to play with as well. So it's been a great event for me. I hope you guys all had a good time. Once more, I'd just like to really thank Russ from Appcelerator and Marcus for the drone application. So we can give them a big round of applause. That'd be great. That's it. Thank you very much. I'm Garrett from BlackBerry. If you have any questions, I think we still have some time for some Q&A for either Russ or myself, and I'll be hanging around after the session as well to answer any questions you might have.
I've got a quick question.
Oh.
The BB Jam bar file, I know it was very simple, How big is it?
So the question was, how big is the bar file that Russ made in his demonstration there?
Yeah, it is simple. Now, the size is 1.9, but about 1/4 of that is the V8 runtime. So we actually put the runtime within it. So although for a simple one you do carry the runtime with it, more complex apps, of course, start to grow, but they have it in there, so it starts to be about the size of what you would expect with an app.
Functional, complicated app would be average.
Probably about 4. What do you think, Marcus? Ket, what's your 2? Oh, okay. So, yeah. So it probably has to do less with the code and more with like resources you would put into it. So if you have a really resource-rich with media files and a lot of images and stuff, it'll grow from there. But the actual JavaScript, it's the start with the V8, and the JavaScript itself is relatively small, typically. So I think. Comes in, it's what you would expect on something like an iOS app or an Android app. So it's well within the range of having a manageable app. Download speeds, install speeds are fast. And as you saw, like this was a very simple build. But even in complex apps, this build to deploy, to test, to run is very rapid. Our compile times, we pre-build all the control code in the V8, so it just gets it just gets loaded right away. Very small little bit of binding to the app itself. Thank you.
We had a question up front, or no? Okay, question was already answered. All right, any other questions? All right, well, if there's nothing else, again, thanks a lot for coming, and hope you enjoy the rest of the jam. Thank you.